Welcome back to Weekly Briefing. Joining me in studio is Nicole Neily, president and founder of Parents Defending Education, Derek Hawley, president of Reaching America and member of Project 21, and Joanna Miller, former White House senior policy analyst under President Trump. San Francisco voters offered a stunning rebuke to radical left pro-crime policies this week. Voters gave District Attorney Chesa Boudin the boot this past week. MSNBC's Chris Hayes absolved Boudin of any blame for the skyrocketing murder and shoplifting rates in San Francisco, rather pointing blame at right-wing media.
But blaming Chesa Boudin and the left at large and reformers and people who want to reduce the U.S.'s incarceration rate from being the highest in the world, that has become very useful for the forces that explicitly want to take us back to mass incarceration and broken windows policing.
Derek, in my opening statement, I kind of touched on this, but I have a running theory about this. I think that Democrats fundamentally, or liberal-hearted people generally, have this kind of romanticized love affair with criminals. And they also love and crave chaos. And so you see moments like that where Chris Hayes is not only defending this anti-law DA, but he's also attacking anyone who dares say that law and order should reign the world.
It's insane. And I just look at, a lot of these crime-ridden cities right now. People are fed up right now with what's going on with crime. And so, but it goes deeper than that, Chanel. I found an article. Boudin, he was part of several attorney generals that George Soros supported in 2018. In 2018, according to an article that was written in August 2018, George Soros sank $708 million of his own money into these elections to elect AGs, attorney generals, in Baltimore, Chicago, San Francisco, Minneapolis, and Detroit.
Wow, that's a new number, because I thought, so one of the metrics we were looking at was just 75 DAs, where they got 40 million. But you're saying this is a much bigger number when it's expanded.
708 million. And they said that the DNC and the RNC combined took 2 years just to raise $502 million, and this guy spent $708 million of his own money.
I mean, the fact that this is being touted as a right-wing thing is so laughable to me, right? Because San Francisco is not even blue, it's like navy, right? And so this is the same rebuke that we saw voters give to that school board recall a few months ago.
Exactly.
This is not being done by a bunch of conservatives and Republicans. This is being done by minorities, it is being done by Democrats, it is being done by first-generation Americans. And so this is a wholehearted rebuke of these policies across the board. This is who they think their base is, and they hate these policies.
Is this the first domino? Do we see more DAs, Soros-backed DAs, or pro-crime DAs getting ousted nationwide? Absolutely.
In fact, LA's DA, he's up right now for, they're looking to recall him as well. In Baltimore, Marilyn Mosby, they're coming after her very, very hard. And they're coming after her for some charges that were, they're sketchy in terms of the amount of dollars that they're coming after her for, but it goes deeper than that because she's part of George Soros's whole entourage of people, if you will.
The current underwriting all of these kind of pro-Soros or Soros-funded DAs is that they all seem to back a very consistent set of policies, right? They're backing zero bail reform if you're out in California. They're backing a no incarceration policy under the guise that COVID really restricted our ability to put prisoners in prison. There's a mantra, if you will, that has been passed down from Soros to these DAs. Maybe not explicitly, we may not find a list, but when you look at the patterns, they all follow the same pattern of ruling their cities.
And just to parallel, I mean, this is the guy who also was pouring millions of his own dollars to impact our rigged election of 2020. And the same thing happened across all of the people that he was backing for secretaries of state and other state office holders.
Right.
They all supported mass mail-in ballots. They all produced illegal guidance to bend and break the rules of the 2020 election. So this guy, I believe, is out to destroy our country. He's doing that through the DAs. He's doing that during our election cycles. And what else is next?
It said in the article that his plan is to heal America from its sins. He's from Budapest. They won't even allow him back in his own country right now. And we shouldn't allow him here either.
100%.
Oscar-winning actor Matthew McConaughey took a trip to the White House this week to stand up for stricter gun control. McConaughey lambasted the media for sensationalizing coverage of mass shooters while pushing gun control talking points.
We need responsible gun ownership. Responsible gun ownership. We need background checks. We need to raise the minimum age to purchase an AR-15 rifle to 21. We need a waiting period for those rifles. We need red flag laws and consequences for those who abuse them.
I found this interesting, Nicole. When McConaughey walked in, he prefaced most of that statement with this statement that he is a native of Uvalde, Texas. He was raised to appreciate guns, to own guns, and treat them as tools to be respected. So it was almost like he was trying to appeal to both sides here. And that seems to be the position he's taken for a while now. He wants to be kind of the sane middle ground. But here he's really taking a position. What is your take on him weighing in on all of this?
I mean, it's been really interesting to watch the White House use all of these surrogate messengers, right? BTS, Olivia Rodrigo, right? They are using other people that pop culture likes because they are so unpersuasive on their own that they are not able to actually even break through, because the message they're selling, at the end of the day, the American people do not want. If there were silver bullet ways to fix this problem, they would have been done by now. Gun control is very, very difficult. My husband worked on the Heller gun case in 2008. I mean, this is something that is extremely complicated, and just saying, okay, red flag laws, okay, assault weapon bans, that's not going to solve it, because at the end of the day, we have an underlying mental health crisis in our country. And so you can put all the band-aids you want on it, but we are not addressing the problems underneath it. And so they can trot out all the celebrities they want. The American people aren't going to pass this. The Senate is going to hold this up. And they're going to be left empty-handed again, failing to deliver on a promise to their hard left, as usual.
You know, another thing that they don't mention, especially out of this Biden White House, they talk about the tools. They kind of touch on mental health a little bit. But they very rarely mention the need for increased security at our schools. So say we do address the mental health problem, because we did not have mass shootings 30, 40 years ago at the rate we have now. We at least could immediately start securing our schools so that random people don't just walk in off the side of the street, couldn't we?
My sister teaches second grade down in Portsmouth, Virginia. She's a staunch, diehard Democrat. But she's all for securing those schools right now, especially in some of the communities that we're talking about where she teaches. You got people just coming off the street doing all kind of crazy things. So we see the extreme when we see these shootings, but there are people entering these schools every single day doing nefarious things and things that just shouldn't even be taking place in schools.
Right.
We need better security in these schools. And if some teachers want to arm themselves to protect them and those babies, then I'm all for it, and they should be allowed to do so.
I just want to add one other thing. The fact that they have these elite celebrities talking to the American people just shows how out of touch the Biden administration is from the average American. And I guarantee you, all of them have private security wherever they go. I remember even watching Nancy Pelosi. I was getting Thai food in D.C. one time, and I watched this woman, while the Democrats are preaching defund the police, get out of her vehicle with 6 armed guards while she goes up to her apartment building while she was just outside. So it just shows you, one, they're trying to have elites talk to average Americans, and then 2, they're not willing to get rid of their own security while telling all of us to get rid of our legally owned guns.
The hypocrisy is abundant, and at the end of the day, they still don't seem to address the fact that if you take away guns, at the end of the day, the bad guys will still find a way to get it. So speaking of armed bad guys, an armed man was arrested outside Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh's home this past Wednesday after making threats to him and his family. Reports suggest the man was angry over the Roe v. Wade leak and recent shootings, allegedly looking to take his anger out on Kavanaugh and his family. Joanna, what did you make of this story? It just seems so interesting that the story came out right as we were talking about gun control and keeping guns out of the hands of bad people.
100%. I just want to highlight the double standard. So when the BLM riots were happening, you have Maxine Waters, rallying the crowd, saying, no, get out there, get on the streets. And those people are the real insurrectionists. Fireworks in the street, our businesses destroyed, black children killed. And then you have people like Schumer who are kind of justifying, you know, getting in the face of the Supreme Court justices, Biden virtually silent, when it's really like a felony to be threatening these public officials. So you just have the double standard here. The Democrats only want to protect their own people, but when it's along with their mainstream media agenda, you know, all rules go out the window.
You mentioned Schumer. Let's toss to that statement just so our viewers know what we're talking about.
Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
So that was Schumer in 2020. Was that not inciting violence?
Absolutely.
By their own standard, right? Words are violence. And that is inciting people, that is encouraging people. And let's not forget that Speaker Pelosi and her colleagues are holding up a bill that has passed the Senate with universal approval to actually secure the Supreme Court's, you know, the justices' homes. And so this is something that they have held down, and then we're surprised when these kinds of things happen. I mean, it's really appalling.
And we just talked about mental health in the last segment. You can't make such inflammatory remarks like that, because you got some crazy people in this country who will take you for your word and come out and do exactly what this guy was attempting to do.
It's so true. When we return, we discuss how Biden's green apocalypse is giving our enemies a financial leg up. We'll be right back. The Biden administration announced a 2-year pause on new tariffs on solar imports from Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia. Chinese companies that operate in these countries currently dominate the global solar energy supply chain, as around 90% of polysilicon, which is a key input in most solar panel designs, is produced in China. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about this.
How is this not a gift to Chinese solar manufacturers, many of whom operate with forced labor and are subsidized by the Chinese Communist Party?
Today's announcement is about one country and one country alone, and it's about the United States. It's about the reliability of our power grid. It's about reducing cost for American families, and it's about enabling domestic solar manufacturers to move forward with their projects.
Joanna, you worked with Peter Navarro in the trade office at the White House, and the problem we face right now is that the United States, when it comes to solar, we don't actually produce any solar cells or any parts for solar manufacturing. Talk to us about this.
So the reason why is because the Chinese have been dumping cheap solar panels into our markets, disadvantaging American workers. So when we did an investigation, that's why the tariffs went on, to spur domestic investment, resulted in billions of dollars of domestic investment and tons of U.S. jobs. What the Biden administration did was they invoked the Defense Production Act while taking the tariffs off. When we invoked the Defense Production Act to combat supply chain shortages for the pandemic, we mandated that they had to be made in the USA. What the Biden administration is doing is taking off tariffs while invoking the Defense Production Act so that U.S. companies can continue to import from China, advantaging the Chinese Communist Party and their infiltration of our economy.
We're continuing the cycle.
100%.
That seems so counter to what we need right now, especially when Biden continues to destroy our domestic oil production. So the question is, why don't we continue to build up our domestic, renewable energy sources? Sticking with energy, conservatives are battling against Biden's Green New Apocalyptic Plan. House Resolution 4266 is at the forefront of this battle, a bill designed to address energy inequality in low-income areas across the country. Derek, you are very much involved in this conversation about energy poverty.
Yes.
This is a concept that this White House is very, very pointedly ignoring and not mentioning.
They won't even mention it's all about environmental justice in this White House. And as I said before in Congress, it'd be prudent on everyone's part. When speaking about environmental justice, you include energy poverty, because the same communities that you claim to protect with your environmental justice policies are the same communities that are struggling with energy poverty. Energy poverty occurs when individuals and families are unable to afford basic heating, electric, and gas needs. And so many Americans are struggling with that right now. So one of the issues that I work on is reducing energy poverty. And from one of my testimonies before the House Natural Resources Committee, Kevin Hern from Oklahoma 1 introduced the Energy Poverty Prevention and Accountability Act last year. It's almost a year today on the House floor, H.R. 4266. And what it does, it says all citizens should have equal access to affordable and reliable energy in this country. In addition to that, the United States should mitigate the disparate impact of increases in the cost of energy on at-risk communities, including low-income, minority, rural, and senior citizen communities, the ones who are struggling the most with the Biden policies right now.
Okay, so quick question. Can energy poverty be solved by completely ignoring fossil fuels?
No, absolutely not. In an effort to address this issue and advance this bill, we launched the Energy Poverty Prevention website, energypovertyprevention.org. And we talk about the solution to energy poverty, which is including we have to increase our production of fossil fuels, or at least get back to where we were. In 2019, the United States became, the #1 exporter of oil and natural gas to the world, okay, and became energy independent, where we were producing more energy than we consume, okay? How is it our natural resources are worthy enough for the rest of the world to use, but not good enough for us right here at home? So we address all these issues on the website at energypovertyprevention.org. We talk about energy poverty, we talk about affordable energy, and we talk about energy exploration. And that's the solution to getting out of this energy crisis that we're in. And H.R. 4266 will ensure that a crisis like this never happens again.
And of course, the Biden White House does not want to talk about fossil fuels because they want to push towards this renewable world where we rely on outside countries. Reports say the White House social media team could be costing Americans close to $7 million in taxpayer money per year. Reports suggest 70 staffers help create and manage the president's social media accounts, and their combined salary comes out to close to $7 million. Now, this is a topic for everybody at this table, but real quick, Joanna, do you remember the social media team at the Trump White House being a $7 to $10 million team?
Not at all. I just want to emphasize one key point from that Washington Examiner article on this. The end of Trump's term, I think there was $10 million less spent on social media compared to Biden. And you have all these Americans that can't even afford to pay for groceries and gas, while all these staffers are making close to $100,000 a year. So,
Nicole, I'm looking at the social media posts of this White House, and they have, in the past 2 years, completely forgotten to post anything about VE Day.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, as a small business leader, I think about what's your return on investment. They're spending a lot of money for, frankly, a pretty bad product. I'd be disappointed, and I am ashamed as a taxpayer as well, because I think this is a poor use of our finite resources.
But also, too, what kind of job are they doing when they found out that half of Joe Biden's Twitter accounts are fake?
Well, hopefully the money isn't fake either. Panelists, thank you all for joining.